Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy to be here with you all today. So what I'm going to talk about in the next 5 minutes is basically a little bit sad. It's about the last 130 years of educational history. But I will end, I promise, on a hopeful note because I think things are heading in the right direction. So before I go to that, for most of human history, learning has happened in what we could call an apprenticeship model. When somebody needed to learn something, whether it was a career shoeing horses or being an attorney or a doctor, what they did was they learned some basic skills, and then for a number of years they followed around somebody who already had that career and learned all their skills. And that person would then say, their mentor would then say, okay, you're ready to go to the big leagues, you're ready to do the job by yourself. So it was very personalized, it was not time-bound, and it was based on actually being able to do the job. So in the last 130 years, we've totally messed that up. What we have done is create a system of school that isn't personalized, is not based on learning the skills that you need to do the job, and is actually more of an industrial model of education. So you could pick the starting point of this mess up in human history as 1892. That's when a group called the Committee of 10 gathered together to decide what subjects should be taught in the secondary school education in the United States. The folks got together who convened this group. They were doing it because they wanted school to be efficient and they wanted it to be scalable. So they went and looked at school systems mostly in Eastern Europe, in Prussia at the time, where they had really good models for sort of a factory model of schooling where you could get lots of kids studying things and measure their performance on those things kind of quickly and easily. Shortly after that, the College Entrance Examination Board, which is now known as the College Board, was founded. And the whole purpose of that organization was to be able to rank and sort students so that entrance to colleges was more simple for college admissions officers. Because before that, tutors or individual teachers would sort of talk and write letters about students to ensure their admissions. So this Committee of 10, they generated this massive report, the Committee on Secondary School Studies. And they established what basically is, it's a little bit hard to read, but basically it took subjects and divided them up into different groups, and it looks a lot like a high school schedule that we still have today. And so this committee was mostly made up of college presidents, some teachers, heads of school, all white men from the northeast of the United States. And once they completed this document, they decided that this was what school was going to look like. It was going to be divided into these subjects, and it's still pretty much like this. After the Committee of 10 established the subjects that the high school would have, a man named Andrew Carnegie, who was actually a steel magnate, at the time he was the richest man in the world, he decided that he wanted to give some of his money away to college presidents and college professors because he thought teaching at the university should be a really high-earning position, and it wasn't at the time. But as he tried to start giving this money away, he didn't have a system for identifying what universities and colleges were actually colleges. Because at that time, a lot of places that were calling themselves colleges were actually just sort of like high schools with a postgraduate year. Okay. So he got a bunch of people together to research how you might measure exactly what a college is. And they created something called the Carnegie Unit, which is basically a measure of seat time that a student would have to be able to get credit for something. And that is exactly the way, those of you who are in high school now and those of you who went to high school, that's exactly the way your high school was structured too. It's about 120 hours over the course of the year. That's a Carnegie unit of any one subject: math, English, science, languages, everything. The reason he did that was just because he wanted to see if things could be sort of certified as colleges. So it had nothing to do with learning or how long it takes to learn things. And it's not based on learning, it's based on organizational theory. So the purpose of all of these innovations between 1890 and the 1960s, including the College Board, even in China, the Gaokao was being rolled out at that time. The purpose of all of these innovations was to increase efficiency of school operations in a factory model and to easily but not reliably rank and sort secondary school students for the purpose of admission to higher education. That was the whole purpose. None of this was really based on learning or how learning happens or making sure that students are well and happy. And so I think of all of these things as the college industrial meat grinder. So really all of these things come together and they sort of make things really not great for kids. The Great American High School Transcript is one of the United States' most pernicious exports. All around the world, this is how high school is measured. And it's all about how we measure and rank and sort kids at the transition from secondary school to college. And it's about making things easier for people, but not making them better for kids. However, I think there's a lot of hope, actually, in looking at the history, because if you read the Committee of 10's report, it was written by teachers and educators and people who really enjoyed time with children and cared about learning. And like you can see in this paragraph, the people who wrote this report really didn't want it to be standardized. They weren't psyched about the idea of a Carnegie unit. They thought that teachers and schools should design what they know to be right for their own students. And unfortunately, that got lost along the way. So as we look forward to how schools should be designed in the future, we really have to ensure that we start letting go of some of these things that have defined the last 130 years of teaching. We have to ensure that learning is optimized in our schools and design the school day and the school year in whatever way we need to so that happens. And we also have to promote well-being and deep learning for our students and our future on the fragile planet. One of the most inspiring innovations, I think, in education today is the idea of the Mastery Transcript. The Mastery Transcript is an organization that's trying to replace the traditional high school transcript, the Great American High School Transcript, with something that's not based on seat time or Carnegie units, but something that's based on kids' proficiency and competencies in the skills that they need to be successful and happy in the world today. So I'm really hopeful for the future of education, but I think we are entering a time where the last 130 years are going to be a time that we remember as sort of a dark time in education. So with that, I hope that Keystone continues to be a part of how we move forward in this and that we let the light in. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCarron, for that wonderful speech. Now, let's welcome our first student speaker of the day, Henriette, for the potential of everything to be anything.